all set? Good morning, supervisors. This is the meeting of the St. Croix County Board. This meeting has been properly noticed. We have with us this morning Pastor Larry Zyman from Faith Community Church here in Hudson for our invocation. All stand.
Good morning. Please join me in prayer. Father, we stand before you as people who love St. Croix County. So grateful that you've graced us with this place to live. And I'm so grateful that you've graced St. Croix County with these people to serve, and ask that as they do their deliberations this day, that you help them to work out of a confident humility, confident that they've been placed in these seats by the people and ultimately by you, and with the humility to recognize it's not their county. And they've been given opportunity to steward and govern and to love and serve this county, and ask that you'd help them to do that well. We ask that you'd help them to try to create the type of atmosphere whereby individuals as well as the larger county can flourish, and where peace and safety can increase, and discord and hatred decrease. Give them wisdom, O God. Give them humility. Give them joy. Give them eyes to see why you've placed them in this place in this time, so that this county may prosper. And I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We join together in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we get ready for our roll call, let me point out a little tip that I just learned at WCA. We did participate with this technology and this exact vendor in the business meeting, and there were 72 counties represented, so obviously that was a lot of remotes. The vendor was in fact there and walked us through a couple of tips. And one of the tips he said, don't think of this as a remote. It's not like a TV remote that you have to point someplace. He said it's wireless technology. And he said it works much better if you don't pick it up. Leave it on a solid surface and simply press the buttons. And then it's easy to press the button. Don't pick it up, move it around. And it went very easy with 72 people. So I thought, good tip. So just a reminder, don't pick them up, just leave them right there. And are you ready for a roll call? Okay, at this point, you will press yes if you are present. Mr. Malik is absent this morning and excused, so we should have 18 present. And then confirm. And there we are. And that, just as a tip, should work. Good. Mr. Whiting, Administrative Coordinator report, please.
Well, good morning, everyone. A few things to report on. As most of you know, we had a large rain resulting in a flooding event here a few weeks ago. It's a multi-county situation. There's a lot of work being done excuse me, to determine the costs and the eligibility for reimbursement either through the state or through FEMA. And we don't have any final reports on those just yet, but I know our departments are working on that, and some of you may be aware of some damage out in your areas, but I think those are going to get taken care of. It may be a little bit of a protracted process for us, but talking with Tim earlier today, assured that we will take care of what needs to be taken care of. Today, if you want to get on the internet before the end of the day at some point, you might see our new website design up. It's supposed to be live here today. I was kind of hoping maybe it was something we could do even for this meeting, but we'd probably have to wait until the next meeting. Keep checking throughout the day. Most of you, I think, know our website, and you can give us some feedback on what you think of it. Staff people put a lot of time into going through the particulars of the design, the wording, the layout, looking at many websites from around the country for local governments, cities, and counties. And you know, it looks good to me. I think hopefully you'll like it. Our residents will like it, and it should be more interactive between departments and the web to get the information out to people. They will have more say-so, more direct linking into what goes on the website than what we've had. So feel free to give us some feedback on that when you see that. I'm also going to mention, since we're on the internet, put a website up on the board here, the Gateway Corridor. As I've mentioned from time to time in the past, been working with several counties in Wisconsin from the border over to Eau Claire on regional transportation issues. There's a similar group on the Minnesota side. I attend their meetings. They have representatives that attend our meetings. The Minnesota side has secured funding for a region study between St. Paul and Eau Claire. There's several advantages to the region for looking at this in this perspective. There's multi-states, there's multi-congressional representation. There's all sorts of opportunity here to be considering some advantages to St. Croix County and the region. And as this study goes on over the next year and a half or so, if you want to get yourself a favorites and check that out once in a while, you can keep up with it. I know our highway department will be involved, and perhaps some other departments within the county as data gets put together and analyzed. So just mention that we've been meeting with our unions on contracts. We'll meet again on Thursday. We've had some initial exchanges of proposals and some follow-up meetings. Don't really have an idea what the timeline is going to be to bring things to resolution, but we will continue to work on that throughout the fall. Administration Chair Norton Bauman will touch on the budget later, but administration did come up with essentially a balanced budget here last week. We're still putting together some final numbers on that. We'll be spending the next 3 weeks putting together the presentation for you on October 26th. I'm just going to mention that we are required to put the notice for the meeting and the levy in the newspaper, and you may notice that that notice will state that there's a 3% levy increase. That is the maximum that the county is allowed to do. The recommendation from the administration committee is going to be a 0% increase. If once that notice is put in the paper, the county board cannot go above what's published. So the max has been published so that the county board still has the latitude to make decisions on the 26th of October, but the recommendation from the committee will be a 0% increase, and that is noted in the notice as well. And I particularly just want to take a minute to thank the department heads. The committee has worked very hard. The department heads recognized, I think, the situation as best as they could and responded to help us bring some budget numbers down. There were some cuts, there's some deferments, there's some of the things that oftentimes we end up doing to try to get to a balanced budget, but I like to say that I felt we got great cooperation from our department. Some took some big cuts, some big deferments, but in the end here we'll have a balanced budget. But I can assure you that we will have some longer term issues to be dealing with, and Sharon might get into that a little bit later. So that's my report. Does anybody have any questions for me today? All right, thank you.
The agenda has been distributed for your prior review. That includes the specific items in the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on either the consent agenda or the regular agenda? And if not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Supervisor Schrank moves. Second from Ritz. Hold on second. Jean, would you enter your second?
Yes.
Ready to vote on approval of the consent agenda. Consent agenda is approved. The regular agenda is also in front of you. Any questions or comments on the regular agenda? If not, a motion to approve the regular agenda as indicated. Supervisor Larson, second from Schrank. Enter your second, Elfie.
Are you doing, I didn't know you were going to do this. We're doing this agenda now?
The regular agenda.
Okay. I'm sorry, Roger?
Larson, Schrank.
Oops. Yep. I'll be at the second. You need? Second.
Put your second in, Elfie. Okay, vote please. Ready?
Nope, we'll go here, Jim.
And the agenda is approved. I'm anticipating that we will have some ice cream treats at about 10 o'clock. I did speak a couple of weeks ago with Nancy Berman, and she's intending, or at least at that time, intending to have some of her 4-H ambassadors here for a brief presentation and some ice cream. We're hopeful that that will occur. So we'll see. We'll take a break about 10 o'clock, and hopefully we'll have ice cream. I guess that's the way we'll phrase it. At this point, I'd like to call on, we might as well start with Mr. Heisey. His reports are distributed for you. We'll let Bob come forward and in person walk us through the land and water and the parks annual reports. Mr. Heisey.
Good morning. Good morning. For some of you that don't know me or I haven't met yet, I'm Bob Heisey. I'm the director for the St. Croix County Land and Water Conservation and Parks Department. Like Darrell said, you should have received a report, written report for both Land and Water and Parks Department. I'll make my report rather short. For Land and Water, just a couple things. You also have in front of you a short little news release, if you will. And one of the things that we're working with in the Land and Water Conservation Department is in essentially charged with developing an implementation plan for the Lake Malibu and the Willow River watershed. Lake Malibu is listed as an impaired water. It's listed as a TMDL. TMDL stands for total maximum daily load. It's a fancy name for impaired water. It's impaired due to excessive phosphorus and sediments entering that water body. So what we're doing is we're working to develop a plan, a strategy, if you will, to develop goals and essentially a strategic plan of how we're going to reduce those amount of nutrients entering these water bodies. Also, just to look forward a little bit, if you will, both Wisconsin and Minnesota listed the St. Croix River as an impaired water. So as you look at the big picture here, Willow River drains into Lake Malibu, into the St. Croix. So this whole effort is essentially trying to make a difference to the St. Croix River. Over the next several months, we've developed a stakeholders group right now. We're working with landowners to identify and help define what those goals and strategies will be in the planning effort. Simultaneously, as we're working on this project, we have Discovery Farms, and Discovery Farms is a program through UW Extension that targeted an area within the Willow River watershed. It's a sub-basin, if you will, which is doing essentially on-farm research on different cropping practices and doing different monitoring on that. So those results are going to be critical to, as we move forward on the reduction of our phosphorus, and also will be critical for other water management throughout the state. So that's one of our main priorities in land and water. Also, I wanted to, into the report, I did want to make a correction on the report. It said that we have adopted our animal waste ordinance. That's not correct. We have amended it. We are currently working with our committee on the review of that ordinance, but it is not adopted. So just as a correction on that. Also in your packet is I put together in there just a little white paper on essentially some agricultural statistics in St. Croix County. Statewide, agriculture is about a $60 billion industry. It's critical to the economic condition of Wisconsin, but more locally, it's a $500 million to our local economy. It employs roughly 5,000 jobs locally, that's directly and indirectly. And I think as you look at agriculture, it's been changing. Agriculture is changing. What we've known it to be over the last 20 years is a essentially small dairy operation here, essentially in St. Croix County, and that's changing. It's changing statewide. Now you look at the changes. We're missing or losing a lot of our small dairies, but essentially our animal numbers are staying about the same in St. Croix County. So that change is taking place. Our land use is changing, but our animal units are essentially staying the same. So I think those are just to let you know that agriculture is just real critical to our economy in St. Croix County. Moving on to parks. What I wanted to do is just share with you a little bit about what's happening and how we're moving forward with some of the damage that we received on a Wildwood Trail. In August 10th and 11th, we experienced a severe storm event. The damage on the Wildwood Trail came in at around $250,000, $275,000, depending upon what number you want to use. Essentially, what we did is we lost 3 structures. We lost the main structure right just south out of Woodville. That one's completely gone. The tunnel underneath the interstate bridge, we have some damage on that. And then what we call dip number 5, which is further down, which is a wooden bridge, both approaches we lost on that. The integrity of the bridge or the structure is still there, but both approaches are gone. And then, considerable damage over the entire 7 miles of the trail. So where are we? As you know, FEMA, we just didn't have enough damage, I guess. It's oxymoron, but to really get some of the FEMA money. So that option is not available to us. We are working with Kristen Saylor on some other grant opportunities that might assist us. Both those 2 of the structures, our structure number 1 and structure number 5, we're part of our local, we're listed under our local insurance. And the insurance adjuster had been out on site and looked at those structures, and we are going to move forward with replacement value on those. So this year, we're going to be working on structure number 5. We've already met with the highway department. We'll be taking care of both those approaches on structure number 5. Hope to do some repair on the main interstate tunnel, if you will, on that, to repair that. And then this coming spring, late spring, early summer, we'll be working on the repair of structure number 1. Now, we still got tremendous amount of surfacing and other repair to do. On Friday, we did receive word that we were able to get some emergency monies through the Snowmobile Association. So we got roughly around $11,000 that we can do some work on that. Our goal this year would be to do at least the amount of work necessary to make it available for the snowmobiling folks. We should get it to surfacing close enough for walking and maybe some bike riding maybe yet this year. But really the biggest challenge after that, after next spring, will be just our surfacing of the material and trying to get it back to the kind of condition we had before. So that's kind of where we're sitting on that. But we're moving forward, and there are some positive things going on, and we'll get it repaired. So with that, I'll take any questions. Steve.
Thanks, Bob. Say, could you explain just the difference between not getting the FEMA money and how the county's impact from a cost standpoint for by the fact that we have insurance to help offset those damages?
Well, actually, having the insurance is probably going to be more beneficial for us than the FEMA money. So that's going to work out pretty well for us. Because we didn't get the FEMA money, there are some state programs that we may be able to tap into. What we don't know yet is, do any of those grants fund recreational trails? They'll fund considerable amount of infrastructure work, but will they fund recreational trails? And we haven't defined that yet, but we're working on that. Hey, Roger.
Is it not true that cattle numbers or dairy cattle numbers in the state of Wisconsin are staying about the same, just as the county is?
Roger, I don't know the answer statewide on that one.
Statewide is about the same equivalency
Okay.
as it is
And
the county.
you know what? And I would expect that what's occurring here in St. Croix County would probably be very similar to other counties, except as you start looking at Brown County and Outagamie County, they are experiencing some awful large dairy operations out there, and their land limitation is a lot less. So they got some other issues going on over there. Any other questions?
Thanks, Bob.
Hearing none, thanks.
Appreciate it. Yep. Moving right along to Dave Ferdrosi, Planning and Zoning, annual report. Good morning.
Morning, everyone. Nice to see you this morning. I believe you have a copy of our annual report in your packet, structured in the new template. And I want to thank Cindy for working that up and giving us something consistent all to follow. It was good to work with, and I think it's a useful product. I want to just say one brief set of comments looking backward over the last year or so. We continue to be very active in things like planning and recycling, and it's no secret that development has seriously abated in the last few years. And I do want to mention and acknowledge, though, that it appears from what we've seen through the course of this year, through the first 3 quarters, that we have bottomed out in 2009. We had a few years in a row where our permit and property activities were consistently going down, some years in dramatic fashion. And yet, through the first 3 quarters of this year, we have seen, albeit a modest increase in activity over 2009. I hope that's a reflection of what's going on in the general economy. Obviously, it's not happening quickly. Didn't expect it to, but at least the direction of the curve changed for the first time in a few years. The things I want to emphasize this morning are really looking ahead through the rest of this year and into next year. We have quite a few policy items that we will be bringing through the Community Development Committee to the County Board. And I sort of want to take this opportunity to give you all a heads up this morning about what's going to be coming up on your plate in the months ahead. Probably our largest project is the update of the County Comprehensive Plan. We adjusted the time frame for that from this year into next, and we are incorporating the addition of a farmland preservation plan, which was a requirement added by the legislature just in the end of this last legislative session. And so we are incorporating that as well. So over the next 15 months through the end of next year, we'll be inviting you to some meetings, open houses, and ultimately have a public hearing. And our intent and obligation is to have that before the county board before the end of next year. So it's a big one, and we'll hopefully bring something that all of our various stakeholders can agree to and buy into, and that you can support. In that same time frame, we have to update our shoreland zoning ordinance. NR 115, the administrative code that oversees the shoreland zoning program in the state, was modified last year by the Natural Resources Board for the first time in something like 30 years. And so our obligation is to have that updated by the end of next year. So that will be a parallel project. We have a model ordinance to work with, so hopefully I don't expect we're going to go much beyond the model, if at all, but we will be bringing that through the Community Development Committee and to you by the end of 2011. The legislature also obligated us to make some adjustments in our land division ordinance. We have a number of, those two items, I guess, are the two big projects that are on the calendar to go through the end of 2011. We have a number of other things that we will be bringing you sooner, and I want to review and summarize those sort of in the order we're going to bring them. We have some amendments to the land division ordinance, which were sort of created by, again, changes to the platting laws in the last legislative session, late in the session, and we need to make those changes by the end of this year. Not major, not serious, sort of some house cleaning things, but nonetheless, it has to come through the county board. We are also been working on an update of our land information plan. It needs to be updated every 5 years to govern our activities and use of land records funding for modernizing land information and land records in the county. We have been drafting that, and we will be reviewing it with our new land use land information advisory council that you authorized at your recent county board meeting. And that will probably come back to you late this year or early next after state review. As a part of that land information program, we sponsored, as a part of a statewide consortium, the acquisition of new orthophotographs, precise aerial photography. That was done this spring, and we will take receipt of those products late this year, early in 2011. We'll share them with all the county departments, publish them on our website, make them also available for distribution to the general public. Our various development professions always appreciate having updated photography as well. Another item which has been for you before, actually the prior board earlier this spring, is an update of our recycling ordinance. We had some specific issues that came up at the county board deliberation on that. We will be reviewing those and the ordinance with our new committee, and we expect to have that ready to go out for a public hearing and back to you probably early next year as well. Lastly, it seems like you all just experienced the redistricting process, but guess what? You're going to do it again. And I expect that both our planning staff and GIS staff will work with Cindy and the county board to work through that process. We're fortunate to have some experienced staff in both cases who have been through this actually, I think, 3 times, maybe 4 now. And so it's gone rather smoothly, and we'll help you give you the information you need to make those decisions. So a lot on the plate in the months and the year or so ahead that we'll be bringing to the county board. We appreciate the opportunity to do it. All of these things are cooperative efforts. They involve citizens, local officials, other departments in the county, a wide range of development professionals, our committee and the county board, and we thank all of you. So with that, that's my report. I'll take any questions on the written report or my comments.
Obviously very thorough. I'm surprised that this august body has no questions.
I think they're expecting, after what I said, to have me back several times soon. So.
Oh, I spoke too soon.
Darrell, I was just going to say that I think our planning and zoning director has just gave notice to the CDC committee that we're going to be rather busy.
Thanks, Dave. For those of you that have been sitting on pins and needles anticipating the possibility that we were not going to have any ice cream, I just did see Nancy Berman in the back of the room. So when we take our break at 10 o'clock, we will have ice cream. And I'm hopeful that there are some 4-H ambassadors that prior to our taking the break, I don't know if Nancy can hear me, some 4-H ambassadors that are going to have a few comments about the 4-H program. So maybe Dave or somebody, if you could go remind Nancy that prior to our break, I'd like to have her ambassadors available. At this point, let's move to our regular agenda. Our first agenda item is a resolution approving reimbursement of dog listing officials for listing dogs for 2010. This resolution comes to us from the Administration Committee. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move this resolution to the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Motion Norton Bauman and a second from Supervisor Sather. Don't vote. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion on the resolution? If not, I assume you're ready to vote. This is a resolution approving the listing of the officials for reimbursement. If you're ready to vote, vote now and confirm. We don't always vote unanimously, but this one is. Thank you. Next item is another resolution for your consideration. This is a resolution approving receipt of established rate of compensation for Sheriff's Deputy Chris Stewart. This was on a previous agenda. It was pulled from that agenda. The Public Protection Committee and needed to revisit the issue. It is back for us today. Resolution comes to us from Public Protection Committee, and Chair would entertain a motion. Motion Larson, and there is a second from Hermsen. Confirm your second. Discussion. Norton Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no objection to this resolution. I do have a question, though. It would appear to me that based on the tax consequences, income tax consequences of this resolution, that Deputy Stewart would end up with less dollars, potentially less dollars after income tax considerations than if he were to just continue to accept the workman's compensation dollars. So that's my only concern with this, that the forethought going into this has taken into consideration that idea.
Response from anyone on the committee, or Tammy, do you wish to weigh in on this? We can all come forward if you want. You're like the Andrews sisters. Ryan wouldn't remember. Ryan is too young for that.
So am I, by the way. Sharon, I'm not sure I totally understand your question, but we have to process Deputy Stewart's pay regardless of what you decide today under the workers' compensation statute. So if you approve the resolution before you, the finance department has to figure out a way to make a portion of his payroll tax exempt, and then the portion that he's been using his long-term sick to cover ends up being taxed. So it's not, he still gets the tax benefit, and the county still has to provide that to him. And for any of you that don't realize, when you're on workers' compensation, that time is untaxed. So there's a portion of Deputy Stewart's pay that is covered by work comp, and that is untaxed. And the portion that they're asking you to cover still gets taxed. So the finance department here at the county has to figure out a way to do that correctly. Was that the nature of your question?
Well, yes, it was, because if Deputy Stewart and his family are in even a 32% tax bracket, and the workman's compensation dollars would turn out to be taxed because the county's providing them, it wouldn't make sense to me
Right.
for him to ask, or for the sheriff or anyone to ask for this consideration.
Right.
But if what you're saying is that you work out a way in the finance department that he is not taxed on the dollars that he normally would not be taxed on, the workman's compensation portion of this, then this makes sense to me.
That's what we have to do. We're obligated to provide him with that benefit.
Any other discussion? Questions? Seeing none, I assume you're prepared to vote? We're ready to vote? Next agenda item is another resolution. This is a resolution amending the county board rules and bylaws to hold the county board meetings, excuse me, on the first Tuesday of the month. By way of refreshing your memory, we have now done this for 3 months. By show of hands at the last meeting, it was indicated that this is working well for the committees. I've confirmed with Cindy that from a distribution standpoint of information, this is working well, and so we are now then confirming officially by changing the bylaws to move our regular meeting from the third Tuesday to the first Tuesday. One thing before this is placed on the floor, Supervisor did ask this morning if we should include the time of the meeting. I took the position that we are changing the date only, and the time goes with that. I did run it by the way, you may notice that this is not a regular corp counsel, and he thinks that this is an improvement in the visual. At least that's what Don said. Don Gillen is our corp counsel today. He confirms that we're moving the date only, and it's not necessary to also attach the time to it. So with this, this is coming from the Administration Committee. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion Norton Bauman, second from Ritz. Wait, Gene, you'll need to enter your second. Any discussion on the resolution that's in front of us? Any discussion? Seeing none, we're prepared to vote.
You're still voting for two?
I am. Early and often. I don't know if in the history that I've served on the board that we've had 3 successive unanimous votes, so if anyone has anything that they want to submit real quickly and get it through unanimously, we seem to be on a roll here. In fact, we're moving so expeditiously that we better make sure that the 4-H people do not depart the building before they get a chance for their presentation. The next resolution that comes to us is a resolution to implement a purchasing freeze. This resolution also comes to us from the Administration Committee. This may generate some discussion, and Chair at this point inquires if there is a motion. Motion Norton Bauman, second from Ritz. You're getting very experienced at entering your second, so that speeds the process up, Jean. Motion and second from Jean. You got it? Okay. Discussion. Supervisor Marzoff.
The amended agenda indicates that the word process has been replaced by the word, or that the word freeze has been put in there.
No, that's different.
That's number 5, we're on number 4.
We're on number 4.
I take that back, excuse me.
This is a resolution to implement a purchasing process.
Thank you, Board Chair. I just questioned, when I saw this resolution come out, was kind of wondering if we've already approved a budget for them, are we, and I take it this is, oh, wait a minute, now, this is just for the remainder of the 2010 year.
Right.
But for departments that have, if they're within their budget, and is there really a need, since the board has already approved them, the ability to spend those dollars for a requirement to put this on top of the department heads for this additional notice? I guess is about really what it is. And isn't it, it's not that we can deny, or is it? It says require approval. So would it be against really what the board has already voted and gave them the authorization to do? Are we now basically saying, given the authority to take those dollars back? I guess that's my question on this.
At this point, Chair is going to pass the gavel to the Vice Chair, and she had prior warning at our last meeting that I would do this because I do wish to speak to this resolution, and so I'm going to have the Vice Chair conduct the remainder of the discussion on this agenda item and take us up to the vote.
Are there any more questions or comments? Darrell?
With your permission?
With your permission.
Supervisor Hermson, you are exactly on point with the concern that I have. I did vote to bring this to the county board floor, but at the time I supported the bringing it here, I indicated that my support at that time was to get it here for discussion at this level. The county board is the ultimate authority, and the county board cannot be overruled by a committee. The county board can overrule a committee, but not the reverse. While I understand the intent of the resolution, and that is to not spend money if it's not necessary, you are exactly on point with one of my concerns, and let me share the other one first and then come to this one. My other concern is that it seems to convey, I think unfortunately, that there is a lack of trust in department heads, and I think that would be an unfortunate perception. I don't think that was the intention, but I think it may convey that. The other more important point, and I think you put your finger precisely on it, is that in my opinion, this resolution is unenforceable. The county board has already approved this year's budget. The items that we would be talking about here are in this year's budget and have already been approved by the county board. So for any committee to attempt to override that, or in this case even to bring it here and say we're going to reverse that process, seems to me to be unenforceable. I did discuss this briefly with Corp Counsel a week or so ago. Since he's not here, I hate to put words in his mouth, but he agreed that in his opinion it's also unenforceable. And because of that, it's very difficult for me to urge support for a resolution that on the face of it we're agreeing conveys a message but may be inappropriate in terms of procedure. And so therefore, I am obligated to vote in opposition to the resolution.
Are there any more questions or comments? Supervisor Sather?
Part of the discussion in the meeting was, maybe there's some purchases, not monthly expenses, it's just some purchases that might not hurt to have a second set of eyes look at them and determine the necessity for those purchases at this time. And I mean, I don't think you're given, in these economic times, I don't think you're given the wrong perception to have another set of eyes look at it. Doesn't mean we distrust anybody. I think it's just, a secondary review process. And if this board has already approved the budget, this is just an alteration to that budget, putting in another step to make sure that the things we do purchase the rest of the year are absolutely necessary. Maybe we can identify some cost savings, and that's why the committee brought it forward.
Are there any more questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to speak to this resolution since the administration committee was almost unanimous in bringing it forward. I agree with Supervisor Sather that this, while it may be technically unenforceable, it would appear that a second set of eyes or a second look at the purchases that are to be initiated the rest of this year, it just seems to me that when we're in such an economic dire straits time, it would be good for all of us to be very aware of what we're spending of the taxpayers' dollars.
Are there any other questions, comments? Supervisor Hermsen?
Thank you. I guess this is what I think is what this is coming. The reason why it's coming forward is because there's a concern that maybe we are. Is it possible? I guess I'm going to ask this way: is it possible we are going over budget? If a department is going outside of its budget, I would absolutely agree that this needs to be in place. But if they're within budget, then I guess I don't see the need. So I think this must be a precursor then telling us we're not on budget for this year and that dollars are not available. Or do we have any department within the county that is in deficit spending at this time? I guess is my question.
I am not aware of any that are in deficit spending at this point. Michelle? There aren't any.
Are there any departments suspect of being in deficit spending before the end of the year?
I'm not aware of any. Do we have any that are close, Michelle? Evidently not. Buzz?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I noticed that you voted against this resolution in committee. I wondered if you could share with us your reasons for having done that.
I felt it put an undue amount of stress on the department head when we have these things come in. And as Fred pointed out at Health and Human Services, that the chair would have to be called in the middle of the night if we had to have an emergency hospitalization of one of our clients. And there are a lot of other issues that you could bring up too. But I realize that doesn't sound like much, but I just felt it was putting a lot of undue stress and more work on our department heads. And I feel like Darryl, it's already been approved, it's in the budget. I understand the reason that we're hoping to save some money on it, because we have noticed in some instances that committees have purchased things that could have probably not been purchased and they would have been just fine without them, and that would have saved us some money. But I just feel at this point I cannot support this motion. Are there any other questions or comments? Supervisor Hermsen?
Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment to this. how about if, since it isn't enforceable, and I think we've just heard that the Corp Council has given an opinion that it's not, that, and I understand the reason we want eyes. We want board members to be aware. So I think there's some value in the resolution. So the only thing I would like to change is the word. Instead, in the second whereas, where it talks about for the purchases over $750 for the remainder of 2010 shall require notice given to the committee chair of that purchase. It isn't that they need approval, but that notice is given.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. Are there any other comments or questions, or are you ready to vote? If you are ready to vote, please do so.
The resolution fails. Next item is resolution to implement a hiring freeze. Pardon me? Are they ready? I guess by the time they would do that, let's hold that until after our break. At this point, let's have the ambassadors, the 4-H ambassadors, come forward. And if you would please take the microphone here, introduce yourselves, and welcome. And I can tell none of you are nervous at all, and that's good.
Hi, my name is Krista Fisher, and I'm from the Roberts Ribbon Reapers 4-H Club, and I go to St. Croix Central High School. 4-H has taught me to be more organized. By holding leadership positions at the club and county levels, I've learned how much work goes into planning events and meetings. Being able to be organized and plan events are important skills I will use my whole life. I am a senior in high school this year and planning on joining AmeriCorps next year. Organizational skills will be important for me to achieve my goals through this program. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shelby Little, and I am currently a member of the Pine Lakers 4-H Club, and I go to St. Croix Central High School. 4-H is an important role in many kids' lives. It's a fun way to spend their time instead of playing video games or watching TV. 4-H also provides great opportunities like the Wisconsin State Fair. Many kids go to the state fair and absolutely love it. It requires some time, but it all works out because they like to show and perform there. Also, kids meet a lot of new people at the state fair. I have met a lot of new sheep showers in my last 2 years, and I am great friends with them. If St. Croix County didn't have 4-H, kids wouldn't be able to go to the state fair or even have the county fair.
Hi, my name's Heidi Feiereisen, and I'm from the Roberts Ribbon Reapers 4-H Club, and I go to St. Croix Central High School. 4-H has taught me so much about being a good leader. It has taught me to voice my opinions without any fear, and to talk in front of a lot of people. But the biggest thing is that 4-H has given me a leadership guideline. I've learned that to be a good leader, you have to follow the 4 H's: head, heart, hands, and health. To be a good leader, you must use your head for clearer thinking. You need to be able to plan things and be organized. Your heart for greater loyalty. You need to be very loyal and give 100% of the time. Your hands to larger service. To be a good leader, you have to be able to reach your hand out to those in need and do some community service. And last but not least, health to better living. You need to be a positive role model and display yourself in a healthy way. Leadership takes a person a long way. It starts in the club, moves to the community where I'm at now, and someday I hope to make a difference in the world. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions for us? All right, thanks. Please join us for ice cream across the hall that way.
Yeah. Thank you very much, ambassadors. Probably a lot of us were in 4-H at one time. I was in 4-H for 9 years, and we probably got other 4-H members here, so a warm spot in certainly my heart and probably all of our hearts for 4-H. The ice cream is across the hall in 1406. In 1406. So we are on break for 15 minutes. That wrap up that portion of our program and maybe to make some an announcement, I guess it would be.
Thank you, Daryl. I just wanted to say thank you for letting the young people come and speak for you this morning. They take time out of school and come running over here to just share a little bit of their 4-H background with you. So I hope you enjoyed the ice cream. I did also mention to Daryl that we neglected to remind you that this week is National 4-H Week. So as you're driving around the county, hopefully you'll see some window displays in the county and some little posters in people's yards about joining 4-H because it's kind of a highlight of the program. And we're also celebrating this evening, and a couple of your colleagues will be with us as we celebrate recognizing the 4-H volunteers who help make the program happen here in St. Croix County. And conveniently, all three of those young people that you heard speak tonight will be award recipients this evening, getting some outstanding leadership awards. So thank you for having us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5 also comes from the Administration Committee. This is a resolution to implement a hiring freeze process. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion Norton Bauman, second from Supervisor Marzoff. Enter your second. And discussion. Supervisor Marzoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I think I understand the intent of the third whereas, whose present wording, however, is not quite clear, in the interest of clarification, I respectfully move that the following change be incorporated into that whereas. I will read it the way it presently is written, and then I will read it with my suggestion. Whereas a cost savings may be realized by reviewing the need to fill current and future vacant positions that do not endanger the operation of essential county functions, I respectfully recommend that we change that to, whereas a cost savings may be realized by reviewing the need to fill current and future vacant positions, comma, whose vacancies would not endanger the operation of essential county functions.
Supervisor Marzoff, are you offering that as a motion to amend?
I am.
Is there a second? Second from Supervisor Lucky. Yes, and do you have that in writing?
I do.
Okay. If you could just hand that forward to the clerk, it would be appreciated. Discussion on the amendment. Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. I guess I'd like, maybe if Supervisor Marzoff could further explain, I didn't catch what the change entailed, if you could help with that.
I just felt that, and I say this without criticism, but the wording was awkward to the point of not being clear. It originally read, whereas a cost savings may be realized by reviewing the need to fill current and future vacant positions that do not endanger the operation of essential county functions, it seems to imply that the positions endanger the operation. And to clarify that, I simply am recommending that we change it to read, whereas a cost savings may be realized by reviewing the need to fill current and future vacant positions whose vacancies would not endanger the operation of essential county functions. Does that help?
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote on the amendment. Linda, put your second in. We're voting only on the amendment, and the amendment is the language that is submitted by Supervisor Marzoff, which adds a comma after the word positions and then says whose vacancies do not endanger. Proceed to vote on the amendment. And the amendment is adopted. We now have in front of us an amended resolution. Discussion on the amended resolution. Supervisor Lucky.
When the word freeze got inserted into this, that seems to cause the resolution to contradict itself. In my mind, a freeze means that you're not going to fill current or future vacant positions until you lift the freeze. But this talks about freeze and review, and goes on to imply in the last resolve that you are going to fill positions. So which is it? A freeze or a review?
Thank you, Board Chair. Our committee really wanted to insert the word freeze, and it was initially in the language at the committee discussion and inadvertently got left out of the first document that was mailed to you. It has since been corrected. For lack of a better term, we all pretty much agreed that this would be what we called a soft freeze. In other words, there would be positions within the county that would need to be filled because of a necessity of staffing for a certain function. So therefore, this is a freeze and a review at the same time. Positions that are left vacant will be frozen unless the proper committee, the administration committee and this board decide that the position needs to be filled because it is definitely required. I hope that answers your question and concern.
Supervisor Sather.
As a point of clarification, the first therefore actually explains all that. This is a hiring freeze and a review process. So that explains, we're calling it a freeze because we don't need a whole bunch of words at the top as long as the intent of what we're trying to say is there. It is a freeze, but it is also a review process.
Supervisor Rebels.
Part of the problem that we have here is we can take highway as an example. Right now, we have a person that retired just a few days ago. That position must be filled because the job is there. We have to do it. We have to plow snow. It's coming up, and we have to get somebody trained to do that. And I think that's where part of the problem with a complete freeze comes up.
Any additional discussion?
One of the problems that we have at Health and Human Services, actually in the nursing home, is the fact that we have on-call and casual staff. If we can't fill a position, then we have to go to the pool nurses or pool staff, which costs us a great deal more money than the others. So I'm kind of concerned. I realize it somewhat suggests that there are exempt areas, but it doesn't really spell out those exempt areas. So that is a little bit of a concern to me.
Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you. I do believe that the administration committee and the parent committees will take into account any jobs or any positions that need to be filled, and they will, if they're absolutely necessary, be filled. One of my concerns looking forward into 2011 is that as we receive our revenues from the sources that they come from, we aren't sure, quite frankly, what will happen after Wisconsin elects a new governor. I don't care which party gets elected. The state is very direly in debt. We probably will have some reductions in revenues, and therefore, as positions become vacant in 2011, it seems very necessary for the committees in charge of the departments to really take a look at, do they have the revenues to fill the positions? In addition to that, I'm personally not wanting to bring on new staff people into our county and have them leave a job or come to work for this county, and then within a few months perhaps, knowing that we don't have the revenues, have to lay them off. So I think that's most unkind. And so therefore, I really encourage you to support this freeze and review process resolution so that the committees involved with the departments get a good hard look at which positions within their departments, as they become vacant, will really need to be filled.
Any additional discussion?
I need to recreate the motion, so I'll have.
We are recreating the motion because at this point we're back to the main motion. We have an amended resolution in front of us. And by way of refreshment, that was Larson? Sharon, second Marzoff. Yes. Buzz, put your second back in. What we are going to proceed now to vote upon is the amended resolution. So it is the language that's in front of you, but it includes the amendment that we have already adopted, the amendment submitted by Supervisor Marzoff, which put a comma after positions and third whereas, and added the language whose position, or whose vacancies. The word whose is in my mind. Are you ready to vote? Proceed to vote. (17 to 1). The resolution is adopted. At this point, we have completed our agenda. I did, however, ask the chair of the administration committee to present a brief report indicating where the committee is currently at with respect to budget process. As was indicated earlier in the meeting, the committee has reached a position of a balanced budget. It will be presented to this board on the 26th in our public hearing and budget meeting. Prior to that, there was publishing requirements that we have complied with. So for purposes of making sure that all of us are aware of where we're currently at and a summary of what that means, I'm going to ask Chair of the Administration Committee, Supervisor Norton Baumann, to bring us up to date.
Thank you, Board Chair. I'm going to be very brief in this, the comments I have to make today, since you all have documents in front of you which indicate the cuts that have been made and the fact that we have a balanced budget. The Administration Committee is presenting a preliminary balanced budget to you today. This budget has no increase in the county tax levy. This has been a difficult task for all of us, as we were facing a large deficit in our preliminary budget process, which we reported to you at the Committee of the Whole meeting. Our department heads have stepped up to the challenges we faced and have made the necessary adjustments to help balance our budget. The Administration Committee will be meeting again on October 18th to fine-tune the final budget product, which will be brought forward on October 26th for a public hearing and board action. For those of you, both board members and staff, who communicated to us with your thoughtful ideas on the county budget, we thank you for your efforts. And I would encourage each of you to review these documents today or whenever you have time because they really do show you that the budget is preliminarily balanced, and the cuts that were instituted and the revenues that were added in order to come to that position. And I thank you for your attention.
We are not going to debate any portions of where we're currently at today, but I would welcome any comments back to the Administration Committee, any questions that you have of the Administration Committee, any concerns that you've got at this point. So any feedback from any supervisor on any portion of the budget is welcome at this juncture. Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. I get a sense that given what Administration Committee has brought forth, what we saw today, and the concerns that we've heard over the last month or so as we've started the budget process, I guess I don't have a good sense that we are on budget, even though we've heard here just a moment ago that we are. I mean, we've just had two proposals here to try to limit hiring and to have greater oversight over current budget, and I can't help but believe we're going to see the same thing next year, if not even more so. This proposal that just came out shows that things are getting much tighter than what we've seen in the past. So what I'd like to ask, and I don't know if this is the proper time or not, but I'd like to have the St. Croix Nursing Home Administrator come before us before we vote on this budget for the upcoming 2011 year. And I'd like the Nursing Home Administrator to give us his plan on, from what he's told us last year when we gave undesignated dollars. And I'd like to hear how that plan is moving forward through this year, if he's met budget as expected. If he hasn't stayed within budget for this year, I'd like to hear what his plan is to meet that budget for the 2010 year. And I'd like to hear if the nursing home is capable of operating with 20% less levy, for less levy dollars in 2011 than what they got in 2010. I guess that's the request I'd like to go back to Health and Human Services with and the nursing home administrator before we vote on that upcoming budget and how we're going to provide to that. Just because of the concerns that I've heard over the last month and as we've observed going through the budget process, I believe we're going to have to start looking very closely at any area that we can start either eliminating or downsizing. So that's my, I guess that'd be my request at this point.
Okay, I hear your request. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Supervisor Sather.
The only concern I have is that even though I'm on this committee and it says we're at zero, I mean, obviously we've included nothing for any kind of salary increases, whether they're negotiated at this point. Again, Sharon addressed that we're might see a cut in state funding because of their problem. And we've miraculously started out with a $3.7 million hole, and through some kind of smoke and mirrors, we're down to zero. But part of that, of course, is small, but we've already dipped into the contingency fund for next year to balance this thing. We've done, you know, it amazes me how budgets can come forward and all of a sudden they can cough up $300,000, $500,000, $200,000 when most of that is just pushing our problem into the future. These are these cuts are these changes, and I won't even call them cuts because they'll come back. We've just pushed things forward a year or two, and next year it's going to be uglier. And I think we need to address the future as well as the temporary present.
Supervisor Norton Bauman.
Thank you, Board Chair. I would like to just speak to this board from how does Darrell put it, the 10,000 foot level? I do believe that after the first of the year, we as a board, either at our goal planning session or some other particular meeting, we will need to decide what are the priorities for this county. Because every year we end up looking at a budget that brings us a deficit, and most years, this is my third year on what was the Finance Committee, during my tenure on this committee, we have pushed off some capital projects in order basically to balance our budget. I don't think we can continue to operate in that fashion for the long term. I just think we dig ourselves a deep hole. So I'd like to put y'all on notice that sometime or other during the first part of 2011, we're going to have some hardcore, serious discussions with some priority designations coming forward from this board, so that next fall, the administration committee knows these are the priorities of the board, and this is where we need to focus our attention and our dollars. And I thank you for your thoughts about this as we go into 2011.
Supervisor Lucky.
Maybe I overlooked it in quickly glancing through this, but does this new proposal contemplate any borrowing for next year?
No, it does not.
Supervisor Marzoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to respond to Mr. Hermson's concern about the nursing home by reminding each of us that in the fall 2008 election, there was a referendum question which asked whether or not county taxpayers should continue to fund the nursing home, the operation of the nursing home. At that time, I respectfully asked that we put another word in that resolution, in that, referendum question, so that it read to partially fund the nursing home. That was voted down, but in spite of that, every single jurisdiction in the county voted in favor of keeping the nursing home in operation, and each jurisdiction did it by at least a 2-to-1 vote margin. Our constituents have spoken. Although the referendum was non-binding, I, for one, feel bound in conscience to do all that I can to keep that nursing home in operation.
Any other comment, discussion, questions? If not, supervisors, we have concluded our agenda for the day. One announcement, I'm starting to build a database. I'm going to do the work. It's not my database. I'm starting to build a database for the county of educational opportunities, seminars that supervisors have participated in. We just recently were at WCA. All of us went to some seminars and breakout sessions. Most of you have provided that information back to me. Those that haven't, just get that to me so I can start to build that database. And I would say to everyone, if you go to a conference or a seminar or any kind of educational opportunity, just feed that information back to me. I'm just going to build a little Excel worksheet that would indicate that this topic, this supervisor has participated in this, to build a resource base so that when topics come up, we can quickly go to that database and say, these supervisors have experienced this educational opportunity and here's a resource. So just we often overlook the fact that sometimes the best information is available here, and we ought to take advantage of that. So just feed that back to me, please, and we'll build that database. And with that?
You want to look at the new website?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Earlier it was indicated that the new website was going to be available tomorrow, and Cindy says it's available now, so she's going to bring it up. significant better look.
I served on the web committee, and a lot of thanks goes to Annette Massey for her work on this, but you'll get used to it. Homepage, departments now have a drop down this way, alphabetical, services, still subject to change and additions will be made, but they'll be listing services here. County board, tab up here. Looks like a good group right there. Ordinances will be listed as they were on the old website. And this is the community tab listing all of the municipalities, and I think it's linked to their website. Go through that. Question I often get is on the calendar and meetings here. And not all the meetings are out there, and normally the agendas are posted when we receive them in our office. Okay, so there'll be links to the agendas.
Cindy, just to clarify, so what you're saying is they won't be on this calendar until you've received them?
Not really sure, because sometimes they're subject to change. So the meeting dates that we get when we distribute that monthly calendar, we don't have an agenda yet. But I don't know. I really don't know when they'll be out there. So, and this is still work in process, and we'll get through it. This has always been done through the IT department. The county clerk's office is going to take over a lot of the posting for the agendas and minutes now. So,
could we post meetings even if the agenda isn't there? Could we post them so people are aware of the time?
that's what we'll work towards doing that. But those things are subject to change. So hopefully constant checking. I know Ryan has mentioned the RSS feed, which is a notification. I'm not sure where that's at. I talked to IT about that too. So you would get notified of any changes to the website. I'm not sure where that's at. So online services. I don't know what's out there for sure, but paying taxes, anything else. You can fill forms online and contact information. So, and this will change, but hopefully you'll find, get used to this. And it's live right now. It's out there. I don't know if you have any questions. Quick links on the right.
I think Buzz has a question.
Sure.
Thank you, Cindy. Conspicuous by its absence are the words, services are purpose. Is there any way, short of a resolution, that those can be reincorporated into our website?
I don't know the answer to that. It's a programming thing, and I'd have to talk to IT about that. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your attention. We are adjourned.